Hey, folks. So we are live here. This is Simone Padur, and with me I have the lovely Clarke. Give everybody a wave, man. So tonight, folks, we are going to talk about power tools for kids. A good friend of mine came up with that title, and at first I thought, oh, that's a terrible title. Nobody will love it. And to be fair, it's gotten so much feedback, and it's just been lovely. So thank you all. So Anne and I have been going, oh, what do we talk about tonight? What do we talk about? Well, we can talk about kids for one thing.
Good
So
place to start.
exactly. So I have been teaching for probably going on 10 years. Um, and Anne has how many kids?
I have 3 kids. I have a 16-year-old today. He's 16 today, Burns night. And I have a 6-year-old and a 5-year-old. Going on 106 and 105 respectively.
Cool.
Why I chose teenagedom for 2 decades, I'm not entirely sure. But there you go.
So I think we're going to start with what's come up with you today about kids. When your kids are driving you crazy, what do you do?
Oh, well, what I do now is very different to what I did before because of the access tools.
What did you do before?
Well, what I did before was spent an awful lot of time berating myself and what a bad mother I was and how terrible I am, and really I should be able to be the Blue Peter mother I truly like to be and just solve it all with sticky back plastic. But the only way I was going to solve it with sticky back plastic is by putting it over their mouths, and that wasn't really a way forward. So with the tools of access consciousness, which is what I've been using for just over 2 years now, the difference is that I'm asking questions. I'm asking questions of them and me. So whereas before, them being in a bad place, a bad mood, or me being in a bad mood, could have ruined a whole day, or could ruin a whole morning, or worst case scenario, weeks and months could go by with people just going around in circles of this bad mood. Whereas now, because of the tools, and asking a question and going, okay, well, what exactly is this? What can I do with it? Can I change it? How can I change it? It just shifts the energy so quickly that it doesn't have to be the trauma, drama, and the tantrums, either on my part or theirs, that it would have been in the past. So I'm just so incredibly grateful that I have these tools now.
Cool.
And sing, don't shout. I find that very helpful. No, truly. So I'm, tonight's a wonderful case in point because I wanted to be so calm and relaxed and put together to be here with you and whatever lovely people are joining us. And I was, sort of throwing them up to bed about 25 minutes ago, going, stay in here and be quiet, be quiet. So rather than shouting at them, because it's my choice to do this, it's my choice to hang out, it's my choice to add these things to my life, as well as it was my choice to add them to my life. So how do I make that all work? So rather than shouting at them to get up the stairs, I'm like, right, we're going up the stairs now, we're going to go up the stairs, and I will just sing all my way up the stairs. Right? And it beats shouting. It really does beat shouting. I can't sing as well as you, but hey.
So it sounds to me like injecting joy and a sense of play into what you're doing as a parent, and I would say as a teacher, because I mean that's what I do with my kids. I mean I don't sing so much with them because I discovered, especially with the little ones, they sing back at you, which when you have 30 in a class is not always your best choice. So I'll do funny accents, or I will, like instead of getting angry with them, I will just sort of, have a sense of play. So they still know that there's an energy being directed, like, okay, this isn't working for me or whatever. And that's not to say that, and I know you do this too, that if there is a line that they've crossed and it's not acceptable what they're doing, you know, I will be really firm, but I never use anger to do it. I'm just like, look, this doesn't work for me, period. So yeah, it's a totally, for me, it's a totally different way of being with kids. Like, there's not this, I don't know how to describe it. Like, maybe I don't know. Maybe you can answer this. Did you with your? I know maybe not with your first one, but with your other ones, did you read a lot of parenting books or try to?
Well, I did with all of them and less and less. By the time I got to the third one, I don't think I read anything, which I don't think is uncommon among parents in general. But I've been pretty blessed from the start in that I was really aware, I suppose, as many parents are, that I wanted to do it different to how I was parented. So the first rude awakening is how so much of it isn't any different to how you're parented. And then you're sort of, as I see it, faced with two choices. You either do what everybody else does, or you parent as consciously as you can in those 10 seconds.
Right.
And I sort of chose the latter.
Yeah.
And I take the bits of the books that worked. I suppose I always had that sort of tool. I always took what worked for me. I didn't take everything as gospel. I sort of took what worked. And I did, as I say, try to beat myself into being the perfect Blue Peter mother. I really am not. I am no good with sticky back plastic or plasticine. It's just not my thing. It's just not my area. You know, I have made little felt dolls and stuff like that, and I'm very proud. But you know what other mothers can do in a morning with that, and I've got one. I'm very proud of it, but it's not me. So it's the joy is really important. I was so serious about everything when I was pregnant first. I was really, really happy to be pregnant, but I managed to be serious about that as well. You know, what's the right thing to eat? What's the, you know, what's this, what's that? And none of that is relevant or matters or real. It's just none of it's real. And I suppose that's how it gets so funny and it gets to be so easy to have the joy of it and the fun of them, even when they are driving you up the walls, is because none of it's actually real. And if you're willing to ask them a question, they point that out pretty quickly.
Well, it's interesting. I've been noticing these pictures of friends of mine that have been posting of their new baby, and it's such a different energy that they're willing to be with their kid that I see that you do with your kids as well. And it's just this like sense of play and like they're just playing with her, and she's only like 3 months old, and just the difference I can sense that it makes in that kid's life, like, and will make in that kid's life, is so lovely. And that serious thing, like I know in teaching it's the same, like you must be serious and you have to get it right and this is what teachers do and blah, 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 blah. And I tried to buy into that. I really did. And I tried my best. And I remember there was this little girl and I was trying to do this thing where there was this point system so I could get them all to behave and do exactly as I said. And I tried to tell her, you know, if you keep talking, you're going to lose a point. And she looked at me and she said, I don't care. I was like, uh-oh.
That's getting better than that.
And I'm so grateful for that kid because over and over and over, I remember that and I think, wow, like she facilitated me into doing something different. Because after that point, I realized, okay, I'm not going to be able to do this perfect teacher and follow all these like classroom management rules. I don't like it. They don't like it. It doesn't really work, and I don't know who it works for. It wasn't working for me.
That's one of the things that sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, that's one of the things that I find really puzzling is my kids are absolutely my best facilitators in terms of life living and everything. And the bit that's always puzzled me as a kid and as an adult is what is it or where is it that we forget that kids are infinite beings in small bodies? Like I just have to think back when I was a kid. I knew what was going down. I
Yeah.
knew, who had what, I may not have been able to put words to the particular energy or the particular whatever was going on, but I
Yeah.
sure as hell knew something was going on. And what I find fascinating is that as we get older, there's this sort of preferential blindness or something that sets in where we somehow think that that doesn't apply to other kids. That was just us. We knew what was going on, but somehow these new kids that are coming in there, they've got small bodies, so they mustn't know anything. And for me, it's always been completely contrary-wise, as Alice in Wonderland would say. It's that everything is opposite of what it appears to be thing, in that for me, you
Yeah.
look into the eyes of a baby and it's like, whoa, it's like looking out into the galaxies. And
So
then,
let's do a clearing here. So everything that doesn't allow us to acknowledge what we know, and it doesn't allow us to acknowledge our kids for who they are, and the contribution that they bring to us, and vice versa. Can we destroy and uncreate all of that? Wow.
yep, absolutely.
Right, wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, online show at the Boys and Beyonds. Now, for those of you who are just joining and you're like, what is all that weird gobbledygook that she just said? If you go to clearingstatement.com?
Theclearingstatement.com.
Theclearingstatement.com. If you go there, it'll tell you what it is, and we'll also post it on the event page so you can check it out as well.
Yes.
Yeah, and speaking of which, I'm just going to check on Facebook here to see if anybody has submitted a question. So if you want to keep talking there, Anne, that would be great.
Absolutely. I'll do. Well, it's the who does it belong to? You mentioned anger earlier in terms of me, sort of choosing to sing, not shout, or what can I do different in this rather than being an energy I have no desire to be, either for me or my kids. And isn't it fascinating how we will shout at our kids that, or our nearest and dearest in a way that there's no way we treat strangers. Like it's just so perverse at times.
Yeah.
And what I have found gorgeous about having these tools is that thing of the question. Okay, so every parent out there knows 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the evening is the crazy, can be the crazy hours, tea times, people's got homework, we've got things to do. And there's so many different ways of getting through that, but what if you didn't have to get through it? What if you never had to get through anything again or survive through that evening? What if you could actually find different approaches every day that were easy, that didn't, the question, the what is going on here, just opens up the space, and you don't even necessarily always have to ask another question. You don't necessarily have to ask them the question. It's just being willing to ask a question shifts the energy to the degree that space seems to show up, where it's like, oh yeah, well I can have a laugh with them, or I can sit and read for 2 minutes, and if I sit down and read a book and choose to do that rather than trying to sort of push through whatever this energy is that's currently showing up, it shifts everything so quickly.
So that just caught my attention there, where you said it's almost like you take a time out, or you do something differently. You do something different for a minute. Can you say something about that?
I suppose the biggest difference with that is a lot of parenting books that I've noticed over, say, the decade of that I'm parenting now is about giving the child the time out. I give me the time out.
Wow.
I don't give the boys the time out. I give me the time out. Because it's sort of always been my interesting point of view that, and my just witnessing of things, is that it's very, 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 very rarely about the kid.
Yeah.
They're energy sponges. They're picking up everything from everybody. And yes, they have little bodies, and they're filtering all that through. So it's never been about the kid. It's always, it's always the adults, really. They're the ones with the problem. So I tend to give me the time out. So yeah, I might have shouted going, right, will you sit down, or out of my way, whatever. And I immediately back out of the room, close the door, and go, okay, what can I do here? Can I change this? What can I do? And that seems like it would take a lot of time, but there actually comes a tipping point where it doesn't. It's actually the quicker way to do things. And then I'll go back in and I'll go, okay, what can we do different here? I don't like shouting at you. I don't like being that energy. What can I do different? What can we do different as well?
That is.
And then they'll tell you. They'll say, well, we don't like it, or we wanted to do this, and you said you'd do this half an hour ago and you didn't do it, and yeah, there's times when that line of inquiry you can go down, and then there's times where everybody just has to get their gloves on and get in the car. So, it's just juggling these things to go, okay, well, what's actually going to work? And what's going to be fun? What is it going to be fun? What's going to bring the joy back in? What's going to bring the giggles back in? You see so many things now on Facebook with, these really young kids giggling. And the fewer and fewer clips of, as they get older giggling. And you only see adults laughing if somebody's been hit in the head by a 2x4. What's that about? What is that? What, since when has joy had to become such a rare commodity on this planet? Well, what else is possible with that?
There is the statistic that went out that people watch like crime dramas and murder mysteries. There's a higher percentage at Christmas time than there is at any other time of year.
Oh, the joy.
Yeah. But that's a great thing, and that what I love about what you said also is like acknowledging when you screw up. Like I've done that with my kids and say, wow, like I shouted at you, or I lost my temper, or whatever. And I remember doing this. And as you talk about facilitating you, it's incredible. I was doing this lesson. This is when I was teaching abroad, and it was a terrible lesson. It really was, and it was paper mache, and I just made the decision this would be good, and the kids should learn this. It will be good for them.
Perfect, paper mache.
Yeah, they hated it. Most of them didn't like getting their hands dirty, which is unusual for kids. But they just hated the gluey texture, and it just didn't work for them. Like pretty much every single class, and I had 300 kids.
Oh.
So,
now you see, I wouldn't even go there. 300 kids and sticky glue. Like, what were you thinking?
Insane. Anyway, and they were all in grade 1, so 6-year-olds. Yeah, that's a good plan. So I finally said to them, like, okay, guys. And it went on for 2 weeks. It's not like I was, smart and got over it in the first lesson. Like, this was a long, drawn-out affair. So I sat them all down. I said, look, I get that maybe this isn't the best lesson. Whoever doesn't want to continue with this, just come and bring your project up here and throw it in the bin if you don't want it anymore. And I would say 75% or more of each class threw their projects away. We just did something else, like I did another project that was related that, they could get marks for or whatever, but and so I had one class like lined up. We used to play games where it was like follow the leader, and they'd follow me around, and I'd make them. And the rule was you could follow me, and like we would like dance around, do different things, but you weren't allowed to talk because the walls were really thin. And anyway, but you could laugh. That was the rules. You were allowed to giggle and you were allowed to laugh. You just weren't allowed to talk. And so they loved this game, and then I would get them to like line up, because with 30 kids, like managing 30 kids is tricky, and you only had 40 minutes with them, and by the time they only got in there, you only had like 20 minutes for setting up and cleaning up and all that stuff. So they would stand on these tiles, and I would say, okay, you have to stand on only these tiles, because if you step out of line, then you get, touched by the poisonous slime, and you have to go to the end of the line. And they had so much fun with that. Anyway, so they're all standing there, and I said, you know what? I'm really sorry I put you through this, like for like 2 or 3 weeks of this horrible project. I'm really sorry, and I'm sorry I was so grumpy. And one little boy looked at me and he goes, "You should be." I just burst out laughing. It was hilarious. So,
but I don't know about you, but sort of growing up in Ireland, that's not a thing you'd be used to. It's very much, children, your elders, the whole it's just all that energy of children having an opinion full stop,
Yeah.
and then expressing it. I'm sorry, excuse me.
Yeah.
And for that to be in any way, it just when it wasn't relevant. If you were in school, you sat down, you listened, and it fascinates me what we expect of children that we wouldn't do ourselves. There's no way in a fit we'd do half of what we. So I'm genuinely curious, and I'm wondering about this. What is that tipping point? When does that happen? What is that?
Yeah, when do we get to the point where we're like, it's time to be serious? From what I've seen, it's kids around. It depends on the kid, but I would say starting around grade 4 or 5, and sometimes when the hormones start kicking in, and there's this weird sort of like, I want to be an adult. Well, I look at all the adults, and they're all really serious about life, and you have to get responsible, and and they're not really laughing very much unless somebody's hitting them in the head with a 2x4, or they're hitting the 2x4, however that works. So what I get is it's a way of like, well, if I'm going to be in this world, I guess this is the way I have to be.
Yeah.
And what else is possible? Like, I was really fortunate growing up that I had some really phenomenal teachers. And I remember I even had like this babysitter, and it really stuck in my head. I was just a little kid. She always said to me, look, kids are just little people. They're no different. They're no smarter or less smart than adults. They're just little. Doesn't mean you're less smart. And I was like, whoa, like, you mean like I'm equal to them? And that just stayed in my brain at the time. And then I was fortunate to have these marvelous teachers that had a similar point of view, that really liked kids and really, was like, that was their job, they believed, was to empower people and empower kids. And so it can be different. I'm a living example.
As it can't be better than that. Well, and how delicious that you've chosen to go on and do teaching, because how many people who are that different example and who do see the joy in the life, it's just too hard to be in that system. Like you mentioned earlier, the lesson plans and the 40 minutes and the staying in line. And, I've often said we're still schooling for an industrial revolution that has long since passed. And I'm looking at okay, what would it take to change this? Why are we still doing it this way?
Yeah.
And when you get past that sort of energy of, well, it was good enough for us, it would be good enough for you, so what's past that, and does it have to be really dramatic? Does what if it could happen? Lots of little changes, lots of people choosing to ask a different question.
And I mean,
that's
definitely been my target, is to bring these tools to teachers as well as parents and kids, which is why we're having this conversation, is to be like, okay, so how can you be you in a system that is trying to crush people, even with people that have the best of intentions, And what I found when I was working in the regular system was giving kids as much choice as possible was huge. Just allowing them to, choose what kind of thing they use to make something, or choosing what idea they wanted to use, and listening to them and talking to them. And also, a huge thing is discipline in classrooms, particularly like public schools and stuff, not public schools, but regular schools, is that, one kid hits another, and the teacher is the one that's like, Johnny, you were bad and now you have detention and whatever, you know. Instead of going, okay, so Johnny, what do you say happened? And Sally, what do you say happened? Okay, so how would we like to resolve this? Like, what are we going to do about it? And really put it to the kids and find out what their point of view is and what we can do.
I had a funny situation with that where my now 6-year-old came running into the kitchen with one day and was, you know, upset and harumphed and crying, going, you know, he hit me. And I sort of looked at him and I said, and who taught him how to do that? And he said, oh, what? Because I had been saying so many other times, going, you know, if you keep doing that, one of these days he's going to turn around and trounce you. And there was nothing to do with it, because he's sort of coming in going, he hit me. And I go, well, you know, who taught him how to do that?
Yeah.
And then I have to go back again. And it was just the funniest thing, because it's like, oh yeah, that was and they get it. And I think that's what I'd love for adults to get, is to get the kids get it. And how many kids do you know in your universe that get it so much more than the big people do?
Yeah.
You know, and have and are so more in tune with their own capacities and abilities than the adults are anymore. And what can we learn from the kids? What can we learn from that?
Yeah, definitely.
And yeah, and what if we were just willing to be vulnerable and not know everything, not have an answer for anything, you know, and just go, you know what, I don't have an answer. What if we go find out? What do you think? Where do you think we should look?
Yeah.
And I've just been amazed at what they then come up with.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really, really different and a whole new way of, you know, approaching a situation. It's really amazing. Like, I had a lesson the other day, and we were making these like little, you know, those paper attacher things, those little pins you attach paper to, and you can then move arms and legs if you're making sort of a puppety thing. So they released little people, right, that had joints and stuff, and we were doing a project on movement, so that you would move the person and then you would trace around it, and then you move it again so it looked like they were moving, right?
Oh, cool.
In the picture. And so I had got it out, you know, I'd photocopied these sheets, and I thought, okay, well, you know, you cut the sheets out, and then you place it on the card, and then you trace around them, and then you cut it out again. One of the kids said, why don't we just glue the sheet to the paper and cut the whole damn thing out? And I was like, because you're smarter than me. I go for it. Like, yeah.
I certainly didn't know. I was off down the headmistress's office. I would have said something like that at that stage. But things have changed a lot. Things have changed a lot, and what else is possible with it?
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, asking questions is huge, and willing to be wrong. Like that's been a hard one for me. Like, having to just take it on the chin and be like, okay, yeah, I was wrong.
Well, do you find that that expectation comes at you not only from the kids, but it also comes at you from the parents who are sending these little darlings to you?
Definitely. Although depending on what culture I've worked with, sometimes, you know, you're expected to be wrong because, you know, you are less than, you know, that depending on the view of the teacher in whatever culture you're in, it can be interesting.
So do you use different tools with the parents than you would do with the children? Do you find there's a pattern that goes with that in terms of the tools you would use?
Well, the interesting thing is, lately I was doing a online pod, like I was managing the pod for a class that Dr. Dane here was doing, and which meant that I had all of these participants online, and I had always thought of kids as kids, and I preferred to be with kids because they were more fun and they laughed and stuff. And then there was adults, and I'd actually separated in my mind, like these were actually two different species.
Right.
And it was on this pod thing where I was, communicating back and forth with people that I was like, wow, like, actually, these are just big kids. And so I just used the tools that I would with the kids, and it was just made it easy.
Mm.
So, yeah, like.
So you're going to take that approach with parents in a different way now, the parents of the kids at school.
Definitely. Yeah. So, and also to like look at where the people are functioning from too, like, and I mean that's a whole other subject that maybe is for a whole other hangout.
Well, you know how much I love talking to you.
That's true, too, my friend.
We could just keep doing this.
But
how's it get any better?
Yeah, like interacting, like, okay, so where is this person functioning from? Like, for instance, like I've had kids as well where I was like, oh, this person actually does not like women, like, or men. It doesn't really matter. But they have something going on with whatever that is, where they're just like resistant to you or just don't want to have anything to do with you, or yeah, so that's something to be aware of. Like, okay, because sometimes we pretzel ourselves into different shapes because we're trying to get this to work. And it's not going to work because they have this fixed point of view about you're a woman and so therefore you are worthless, or you're a man and so therefore you are a bully, or whatever their point of view is. It doesn't really matter. But so that's something to be aware of for sure. Yeah.
And that also comes in with, so the younger guys are 6 and 5 now. And it happened with the older one as well. He's perfectly happy in a pair of pink sneakers until he was told in the playground that boys don't wear pink sneakers. You know, that kind of way. It's so,
yeah.
The conditioning is so insidious.
It is. Yeah.
It's so insidious, and even when we think like that's a very overt thing, oh no, boys don't wear pink or whatever, but the more I use the tools and the more I think I've sort of gotten on top of that, it's there's another layer, and there's right, and there's that. So it's all these judgments and conclusions and expectations and separations we have of ourselves, each other, kids, our partners, our parents, our families. And that's a tool that I found really, really helpful, is destroying and uncreating, as they say in Access Consciousness, destroy and uncreate all of those judgments and expectations that we have firstly of ourselves.
Yeah.
And go through the list of everybody else. And it's amazing how much space that makes.
Yeah.
How much more space that creates.
Yeah, I know teaching as well. Like I had a kid and she was really struggling, and I realized, I was like, oh, I have to change something here. I have to like get rid of all those projections, expectations, and conclusions and judgments I have about, how she's going to do if she puts in the work, and actually have no point of view whether she does it or she doesn't do it. And as soon as I didn't have any of that, I didn't have a point of view about what happened.
Okay, now hold that for a second, because you're just there. So for anybody that's not, say, familiar with the Access tools, and they hear a teacher saying, I don't have a point of view about how this kid does, so talk to me a little bit more about that in terms of just, the adults out there getting what we're speaking about.
So we talk about point of view a lot, and point of view is like, it's like, well, this is the way it should be, and this has to be the way it is, and this is, and I mean, how fluid does that feel? Like, how much choice or space does that give the person, right? It's like some kids, their parents have projected on them, this is what you should be. You should be a doctor, or you should be a lawyer. And the kid only has 2 choices. Well, they're not really even choices. They either align and agree, so they're like, yes, I will go become a doctor, or they resist and react, and they're like, no, I am going to go and become a sea captain, whatever. But
I'm off to join the circus.
But neither of those are choices, because they're done out of reaction to the point of view that's being projected at them, right? So as a teacher, if I don't have a point of view, it doesn't mean I don't care about the kid. It just means that I am not going to make them choose either way by going, like having a really strong point of view about it. It just allows them to actually go, oh, and it allows so much more magic to show up, because they can go, oh, well, I don't really want to become a doctor or a sea captain. Actually, I really like to be an inventor. You know, it encourages that wonder to happen rather than reaction. So thanks for pointing that out, because, yeah, I agree. People will be like, you don't want to be able, oh my God, what are you doing teaching children?
But it's the joy of how different, when you use the tools, how different life can be.
Definitely, definitely. And I'm just realizing my computer's about to run out of juice, so I apologize if you see my ear.
What a lovely ear it is too.
I know. So I'd love to, because you have a great story about that with as being a parent, like with your eldest kid, about his homework and stuff. I'd love to hear that story.
I was actually telling a parent about this last night, because we were discussing they've got their prelim exams all last week, and my eldest also got the lead in the panto, and he only got it 4 days before the actual thing happened. So I was just marveling at his willingness to take it all on and just go for it, and I was just basically overjoyed, very proud. Mammy thought, woohoo, I've obviously not completely messed this up. And then I'm going, yeah, like it has anything to do with me. So it's just all these funny things that come up. But in terms of the schooling, when he went into high school, he came from a very small class, and he had been in a Steiner school for 2 years, which was just such a gift, you know, because he got really comfortable in his own skin and knew who he was, which was my target in sending him there.
Yeah.
So in first year, 2 things became apparent at these 5-minute slot parent-teacher meetings that you have to go around. You know, it's like speed dating, but with a teacher.
Such a great description.
So you don't really get a whole grasp on the thing, but 2 things became apparent. One was they liked him as an individual.
Yeah.
And the other thing was that he was more than capable of doing anything he chose to do. And I remember that from being on my school reports, going, could do better, has potential, you know, this sort of isn't living up to potential, whatever the hell that means, you know, that kind of way. So basically, I backed off. I didn't ask him about homework. I didn't ask him about anything. I made it really clear that if he required anything, if he needed stuff, stationery, monies, whatever it was, I was here. If he needed assistance, I was here. But other than that, I basically didn't ask him any questions, didn't do anything. And then, so I'm going in for the 3rd year parent-teacher meeting, and I'm going, oh God, I'm a dreadful mother. I have no idea what's going on. I just about know what subjects he's doing, because he's, you know, we sit and have a natter about it in the kitchen. I'm like, ooh. And I was going up there, and I was doing the stuff I used to do when I was reading those books when I was pregnant with him, you know, making myself wrong before the thing had even happened. Yeah. And then I used the tool, and I said, okay, well, what would it take for this to turn out better than I can possibly imagine? Use the clearing statement, you know, pot and pocked all that. And I went in, and they were raving about him. They thought he was doing really well, and he'd won a poetry competition he hadn't even told me he entered, and I just sort of sat there and marveled at the fact that I sort of joke and say that he thrives on neglect, but it's not. It's really it's the willingness to trust that he knows who he is and what he wants to do.
Yeah.
And that thing you said about resisting and reacting. If I'm at him all the time going, okay, have you this done? Have you that done? Have you whatever? Like, what's my thing in that? I haven't got my stuff done. My room isn't tidy. What the hell am I ragging at him for?
Yes.
But it was so cool to see that. Like, and he has his homework done. Like, he's getting his. And I genuinely, I've no idea when this child was getting his homework done. I didn't know when he was getting his homework done, but he was getting it done. And how he gets it done, and whether it has to have the Xbox on and the radio on and the everything else on, really doesn't matter to me. It's that it's working for him and that he's happy is what actually matters at this point.
Yeah.
You know, I could have this fantasy in my head that he'd come in and, you know, sit down and do his homework and do it. But that's just programming that I'm reflecting from, you know, when I went to school. And, you know, I didn't do it that way either. I did it that way sort of back to term for the first maybe day.
Yeah.
And I had all my red lines ruled in my copybook really neatly. And then, then life happens.
Yeah. Well, and I remember when I was teaching in Canada, like we had this kid who was all over the map. Like he was constantly bugging other kids. And this was in high school, and he was just, a nightmare. And then one day he came in and he had his iPod with him, and he's like, "Oh, Miss, can I listen to this?" And I said, "Yeah, sure. Like I don't mind." Just and all of a sudden, his ability to quote unquote focus. I don't like using that word, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But able to get his work done, and just he didn't bug anybody, and it was like that for the rest of the time. Like he'd just put his iPod in and he'd be fine. And he did some beautiful work. So yeah, when I say I don't like using focus, it's because that's not what he was doing. He was actually doing the reverse. He actually had lots of other things going on, like he was drawing and he was looking at books and he was listening to his iPod, and he actually had more on rather than focusing on one thing. So for parents or teachers out there, you might want to look at, okay, so what is required here? Is it that my kid needs to focus or my students need to focus? Or do they actually need to add more to their lives? And we can do this too, because sometimes when you feel like you're like a chicken with your head cut off and you're so wandering aimlessly around, like what else can I add to my life that would actually get more done? Is what I would suggest.
You reminded me there when you said more on. I love when Gary Douglas says that. Would an infinite being have lessons to learn, or would they be happy being more on? And it just really tickled me pink when I heard him say it.
Sure.
And in school then, what invitation is that when the kid has that freedom, to make as many choices as they can make? What different energy and what different invitation can they be? And what contribution are they then to their classmates, the school, the planet we live on?
Exactly.
And how different can that be? How different can that show up?
Yeah. Yeah, indeed, definitely. And also, like, I find, like, tapping into kids, like, asking them questions about them, like, finding out about them, like, who are you, is huge. I remember I had this one kid who, he was notorious, like, he was always out in the halls, and he was getting into trouble all the time. And this is before Access, so I mean, I'm so grateful for the teachers I had, because they're the ones that inspired me to, wow. Anyway, there's more about that in a minute, but he was tying, we were doing this project which involved sewing, and he was tying the thread onto the needle, and I looked at that and I said, do you fish? Because anybody that sews does not tie the thread onto the needle. And he's like, yeah, I do. And so I talked to him about fishing, and where does he go? Am I interested in fishing? Not particularly, but I was interested in the kid. And after that, he was good as gold. Like he was like, somebody cares about me. And that can be the simplest thing, like somebody cares.
So could we do a clearing around that for the adults watching this? So everywhere the adults around you didn't care and or didn't get you.
Wow.
Could we destroy and uncreate anything and everything that is? Times of God's alien, right and wrong, good and bad, pod and pock, all nine shorts, boys and beyond.
Holy crap!
Because that thing of, coming in with the joy of it, coming in with the hey-ho, wanting to hit the ground running, and what is this like? What can we explore? What great adventure can we have here? And coming up against that energy of, you're a kid, you do this, and you're going, but, look at this, and so all of those places as adults that we haven't acknowledged that, okay, they just didn't get it.
Yeah.
They didn't get us,
Yeah.
They didn't get it. It's not a right or a wrongness, it's just they didn't get it. Okay, I'm an adult now, what can I choose different?
Yeah.
So anything that doesn't allow a different choice to be ease, could we destroy and create anything and everything that is? And I've got zillion right, wrong, good, bad, POC, POC, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds.
Yeah, that reminds me, like, with there's two things here. First, I'm going to talk about, like, we talk about these access tools, and I don't know about for you, Anne, but for me, when I started doing access, I realized there was quite a few things that seemed so familiar to me, or that I'm like, hey, I already do some of this in my life, and in some parts of your life you do it more than others, and in some parts of your life it's like you're like so there's that. So that, like, look at where you're already, doing stuff that's working for you and your kids or students, like, and acknowledge that and go, oh yeah, or I remember that teacher did this and that was really cool, or I remember my mom did this and that was amazing. Like, I never had a curfew ever, and my parents would just say, like, look, like, if you are out and you get in trouble, just give us a call, we'll pick you up, or just tell us where you are, and just check in. And that gave me such freedom. Like, I never felt like I had to party or whatever, because I was like, meh. So yeah, so I mean, I'm really, really grateful for that from my parents. So what do you know that would create more?
Well, I think that's one of the reasons I love the tagline of Access, that it's enabling people to know what they know.
Yes.
And that they know.
Yeah, and that they know.
And
yeah.
that they know. And that is what the essence of this conversation is about, is enabling your kids to know that they know.
Mm-hmm.
And what does that then look like for you and your family? Because it's going to look different for you and your family than it is in the next door neighbor's family or down the road. And that was one of the things that used to drive me insane as a child. My father every so often would go, why can't we just be like a normal family? And I'm like, show me a normal family. What does a normal family look like? No idea. What is that? What measuring stick are we using here? And the measuring stick we tend to use is the insanities of other people's fantasies of what reality should look like.
Exactly.
Not actually how it's showing up, but just, the vision that they have. So, and everybody's version of that is different. And
it's
what
true.
if we just acknowledge that and went, okay, so what do I choose? What gives me most joy today?
Well, and what is... Yeah, go ahead.
Well, it's just, what if there isn't a right and wrong in that? I'm so aware of the places in my life and where I still try to get it right. Like, my part of the stress that was coming up for me this evening was, I want to have the perfect Google Hangout with Simone. I want to get it right. I want to be all those things, and I still, POC and pod myself with that. And when I say POC and pod, that's sort of the shorthand version of the clearing statement, which is equally dynamic, and kids really, really find that fun. Like, my guys will go around and POC and pod, that kind of way, because they'll use the tools with me now because it works, not because I think I should use them, or like reading a book about, how to get a baby to sleep, that this is going to somehow be a magic solution. I've just found that it works.
Yeah.
Using the clearing statement for me works. It creates more space. So even if I'm using it in my head, when we're all in the kitchen, it creates a different space. So I really would recommend that people, when we put the link up, just go have a look at it. It might sound like complete gobbledygook, and yet it might be the most familiar thing you'll ever come across. Which it was for me. It's that thing you said about knowing this. You get there, coming to, foundation level 1 class in particular. Having the manual for that, reading it and going, oh, look, somebody's got a book that, shows how to work me. This is why I work the way I do. This explains so much. And it's not that I'm just so incredibly grateful. I'm so incredibly grateful for these tools, for the awarenesses they've brought for me, and that it's enabling people to know that they know. It's not about following anybody else's knowing. Well, and what if we can be that energy for our kids?
Yeah, and that's great what you said about doing it in your head, because I mean, yeah, I mean, particularly as a teacher and you're working maybe in the public sector or something like that, like you can just do it in your head. You don't have to do it out loud. You don't have to get yourself fired, you know, because it is really different. And there's a lot of people that are like, oh my God, like what is this?
Yeah. Oh, fired
Yeah,
for your family or your faculty.
yeah, exactly. I know there's a really good teacher. She just has these kids like put all the things that are bugging them or whatever, or things that are going on that they want to change, and they put this in a bubble. And then what they do, and I'm just going to show you, they put it all in the bubble and then they pop the bubble. And basically that's her version of Pock and Pod, but it's very physical, so the kids really like it. And you know, yeah, it works. So do it works for you. Like, and I know lots of people get really excited about this because sometimes it's because, oops, sorry, we're on a boat.
Hello.
I'm listing one flag.
Even your computer dances.
It's true. So I'll stop gesturing with my hands. That'll help. Where was I going with this? I don't even remember. Yeah, I was saying something very profound.
Truly
but
profound. That Pock and Potting and the ease and the space that
yeah,
it brings.
yeah, like finding out what works for you, and that's all I was saying, really. Yeah.
So power tools for kids.
Mm-hmm.
If folks looking in are, what does that look like, or what are we suggesting in terms of power tools for kids?
Well, I think what you mentioned about like the Pock and Pod is huge. Like one of my friend's kids, she went to school and she was really having a hard time with this other girl, and she was like in grade 6 or something, and she's like, just in my head, I just kept going Pock and Pod, Pock and Pod, Pock and Pod, and then Mom, it changed. So the thing is, these tools are so easy, and it's so easy for kids, and kids are so much faster with them. So using questions like, how does it get better than this? What else is possible? They can use in their head, and suddenly things change for them.
One of the ones my son has mastered is, what would it take to get such and such? So now they'll use the tools, with me and against me at times. So you really got to up your game.
That's really funny.
But what a joy as a parent is that when I see them using the tools against me, I'm like, how cool is that? Because how many of us went out into the great world after school, after whatever, and found we had absolutely no tools.
Yeah.
We had no tools. Not only did we have no tools, we didn't actually know who we were or what we wanted. We had a whole list of do's and don'ts.
Yeah.
And depending on what culture and country you grew up in, that could be extended. But how many of us actually knew who we are and had an awareness of what our desires were and what lit us up and what would be a contribution to us and our lives?
I know a friend of mine with her kids, and she often asks, like, what do you know, in different ways. And they were trying to find a place to stay for the night. They were traveling throughout Europe, and they were on the road. And she's like, okay, guys, like, start putting it out there. Like, okay, what would it take to find a really cozy place for the evening, or start pulling energy. And if you're interested to find out more about pulling energy, I'll talk about it in a minute. But that's what they did, is they just sort of pulled it into their universe, and she said they always found a place with such ease, like including your kids in what you're asking for. Like, Brendan Watt, he always says to his kid, like, hey, if this is what you would like to do, or you'd like to come with us, start working on it. And he gets to work. He does this thing right now where he makes pictures when people come over the house. They're like, oh, I love your pictures. And he's like, they're $5 each. So, he's learning from a really young age, like, how money works and how you can get it and how you can use your charms to get it. It's very sweet. So We're getting up close to.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
We're really good at talking. So I'm just going to give us a plug here. Anne's doing this great class coming up, teleclass, called Who's Minding the Kids, which I'm really excited about. And it's 5-part series, is that right?
It is. It is. Starting, what did we say? March? It's March. I will put the link up afterwards.
Yes, so the link will be on the event page, and she's got so many great tools. I finally talked her into doing a class on parenting. She's like, I don't know anything about this. I was like, you're such a little liar. So she's finally up there. She's got it. I had to tell her she couldn't do it, and she possibly, all of that stuff. And then she did it. So I'm really grateful. She has such brilliance. Like, it's amazing. And then there's also you have a bars and a foundation class coming up too, don't you?
Yeah, February we're going to do the whole 5 days of change, which I'm really excited about. Mostly because I absolutely love facilitating these classes and the tools, but also because Gary Douglas is coming to Dublin in March. So it's like, oh yeah, and it's sort of the lead up, the run up to that. So I'm really looking forward.
So
and when are you're off to Slovenia though? When are you off to Slovenia?
I haven't finished promoting you. Hang on.
All right, sorry.
So for those of you that are like, bars, what the heck is she talking about? If you go to accessconsciousness.com and look at the bars, we'll also put a link up. But basically, it's just you gently touch these different points on your head. If you've ever had reflexology done where it relates to different points in your body, this is like that in the sense, but it relates to your life as well as your body. And it just, kids learn it so quickly. They love it. And it creates so much more ease between you and your kids. I know my stepsister's been doing it with her son, and their relationship's just getting better and better and better. And he's a teenager, FYI.
Yeah. There is a side effect of using the tools. You do end up with adorable teenagers who aren't the stereotypical thing that we've led to believe the teenagers are. But were they ever that, or was it the points of view and projections of everybody else?
So, and Foundation and Level 1 just gives you more questions, more tools. It has also some processes for working on your body. Kids love it because they're like, oh my God, you mean I have a boo-boo and I can just stick my hand on there and be like, blah, 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 and it goes away? Cool! And they go off and they do it. So it's really, really fun, and I love Anne because she makes me laugh.
And with the kids, I've found that for those adults that are out there, and I know many that I've spoken to recently who know how to run bars, but they will forget to run it on their kids, and they'll go, oh, what do I do with my kid, or why is this happening? And I'll go, have you run their bars? And I have to say it's been such a huge contribution to my 3 boys. Now my eldest is at that stage where he's like, oh, I'm not doing that. But this, the smallies, it makes such a difference to the ease and the space they can be. And they, as you say, they get it so much quicker. It's really, really cool. So now will you tell me when you're going to Slovenia, my lovely?
So I'm going to Slovenia February 21st and 22nd. I'm doing a 2-day class that I'm really excited about. For parents, for teachers, anybody that works with kids, for kids, I'd love to have kids in my class. It's so much fun. And they're such a dynamic contribution. I just love them. So Slovenia is beautiful. Like, I haven't been there yet, but I've seen pictures, and it's really, really gorgeous. And Romana is going to be translating for me, and she's a fabulous facilitator, and I'm really excited to work with her. I also have
coming up.
Yeah, I have a teleclass, but before that, I'm on Nilofer's telesummit called I think it's the Illusion telesummit. Yeah. I'll post that. Anyway, it's called Where is my Doorway to Possibilities, and I'm going to be talking about change for schools. Like how can you use these tools for yourself to allow the change to happen around you? Because I've noticed that what happens is you start to change, and it's like this domino effect, and your life gets easier. without sometimes you even saying a word to anyone, which is amazing. So I've got that coming up, and then I have a teleclass coming up. I think that's on the 7th of February. I don't know.
We're so good at remembering these things. This is why it's really handy to have links.
I'll post that up as well, and you can register at accessconsciousness.com for all of these things. And then I've got another one that I'm working on, which some of you may have been on the Hangout, called Living Voluptuously.
Which was very lovely.
And that's coming up. And also, for any of you in Europe, Gary Douglas is coming to level 2 and 3 in Dublin. This man is amazing, and he has so much information about all kinds of things, and he's facilitated me through all kinds of stuff about kids and teaching and all that kind of thing, and I'm so grateful to that man. He is amazing.
And can I just say that one of the things I absolutely love about Access is that for the 20-odd years of seeking and searching I did prior to finding it, was everything I got involved with, any modality or any class, be it dance, meditation, whatever it was, there were no kids at it. And I kept going, why do you have to wait till you're 20-odd or 30-odd and you've messed up most of your life and then you go get to figure out who you are? Why isn't there more stuff going on for kids? And when I came to Access and realized that kids are absolutely free and welcomed and seen as the biggest contribution in a classroom, in an Access class, I was just overjoyed. That was before I figured anything else out. I was just like, wow, you know, there are kids there. Yeah. And I love the fact that they're absolutely free up until they're 16. Yeah. And then they got a bit more baggage, so they're half price from 16 to 18, and at 18 they've got as much baggage as the rest of us. But it's just how phenomenal is that? Yeah. And I've had kids in my classes, and I've been at classes with kids, and it's so interesting to see them facilitate the room and the points of view come up about what kids can, should be doing, shouldn't be doing, should be there, shouldn't. And it's all just, you know, our own stuff, basically. It's us that need the time out. I'm convinced of it.
I love that. That's so, yeah, I love that.
So grateful to Gary Douglas and being here for all of these tools. And just the gorgeous people I get to meet.
Well, and then the thing is, like, what happens in the classes, like I remember lately at a London Symphony of Possibilities with Dane here, there was a baby in the class, and the mom was translating for the class, so she thought the baby would sleep through the class, and he didn't. He was like, whoa, this is fun, I'm staying awake. And so this poor woman was like, how do I translate and carry a baby around? And she's like, please help me. And everybody was like, oh, can I hold the baby? Can I hold the baby? Just to like wrestle her baby back. But it was so amazing because people were just so happy to contribute and be there and play with the kids. Like, people playing with kids. I was like, sign me up. I mean, these are people and they play with kids and they're like laughing and stuff. Like,
that change is happening. And that change is possible, and it doesn't have to be painful, and it can be really, 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 really quick. It's just phenomenal.
It is phenomenal. Well, honey, we're at exactly 10 o'clock. I have to say, we deserve pats on the back for like managing to shut up.
Did we have any questions that we haven't answered?
I don't think so. I think people were either enraptured or something, but I'll double check.
Or something.
Or something.
Well, darling, as ever, it's a pure joy to hang out with you. And what else is possible now, my sweet?
Yes. So stay tuned, everybody. There's more to come. And if you want any more information, you can find Anne at accessconsciousness.com. It's Anne Clarke. And me, Simone Padur, at accessconsciousness.com. If you have any other questions or queries or want to know more about what's going on. So thanks, honey. I love you.
See you, sweetheart. Good night.
Good night.
Till next time.
Till next time. Bye.